So as far as we know, asking why is something that only humans do. We continually search for meaning in our lives and the world around us. And this hunger for meaningful patterns that we can make sense of the world translates into this hunger for story. And the function of stories has always been to bind society together.
Written stories did fundamentally change human history through foundational texts, through religious texts, through the texts of master teachers, and through the age of mass media, like the one ushered in by print. In this scene, when Ezra holds up the Torah scrolls and demands that the people worship these scrolls as if they were a god, he invents the idea of sacred scripture, that some stories have the status of divinity.
The world's priests and shamans already knew what psychology confirmed, that if you want the message to burrow into a human mind, you work it into a story.
These teachers have introduced a new way of teaching and talking, not just new modes of thought, but different ways of interacting with their followers and students, that demand that these students not just adopt new ways of thinking about the world, but also new ways of living. They're addressing their students and demanding of their students that they really change their lives. And this, these students do in increasing numbers.
I always had this approach to tell people some information, but let them figure it out for themselves. And that's a typical artistic technique, and psychologists actually have confirmed that this is the way that we need to communicate. Because when you allow people to derive meaning for themselves, then they feel like they own this idea. And that's why subtle messaging, that is of course also part of storytelling, is so much more powerful than just telling people this is what we know and this is what you need to do. Because in the end we want to decide for ourselves what we're going to do. And stories are a much better tool in that.
The other interesting thing about these students who in a sense betray their teachers' ruling against writing is that they really know very well what they're doing. They know that their teacher's power had resided on this live interaction. So what they do, they produce texts that read very differently from these older scriptural texts like the Epic of Gilgamesh or the Hebrew Bible, because these texts these students produce, the Socratic dialogues, the Analects of Confucius, the Buddhist sutras, they are much more vivid, they are dialogic, they show their teachers in live interaction with their students, and they channel that sort of live speech, that insistence on dialogue back into writing and produce a new type of text that revolves around the actions and words of these students.
Narratives allow people to experience consequences. So there have been studies that have watched what happens to people's behavior when they watch, for instance, a movie where the protagonist behaves in a good way and then gets rewarded, and if he behaves in a bad way, he gets punished. And then you could see that people were understanding, oh, this is how I should behave, and then I will get rewarded. So again, stories have the power to influence our own behavior and setting values in what is right and what is wrong. This of course can also work in a negative way. So when there is a movie about someone on Wall Street who is ruthless and gets away with it, and it's okay, then of course the audience starts to think that it's okay to be ruthless. So again, there is a power in stories, depending on what the protagonists do, that really shape our values.
We have new technologies, but the technologies of the tablet and of scrolling down texts remind me of some of the most ancient technologies of writing that are being revived today.
So it's not so much writing replaces oral storytelling, but it adopts it, it draws on it, it changes it, but oral storytelling continues, and really one has to kind of think of them almost as part of the same system that gets reconfigured with each new technological moment. And I think that's exactly what's happening right now.
if we're thinking about how people could embrace new values, for instance, to see themselves as part of an ecosystem, of the ecosystem, and that they have a responsibility to take care of the planet instead of taking from the ecosystem and conquering nature, we need a new metaphor.
It's not enough to just think about different individual stories. We need to invent different collective protagonists, collective stories, like perhaps the proletariat in the Communist Manifesto or the market in capitalist writing.
As a society who's grappling with climate change, we need to find solutions. And the analyzing solutions is just one part of the story, and you see I'm using the word story, but emotional content is another one. We need to translate knowledge also into action, and that usually works with emotions or via emotions.